Hey everybody, Chad Hyams here. Welcome to the Achieve Your Apex podcast. It's time to dive into chapter 10. Adapt. Actually, adapt or die. All right, it was a little dramatic and there probably should have been some cool music in there, or thunderclap or something. There wasn't. Yeah, what I want to talk to you about today is adaptation. And if you stick with me through this whole episode, you might be even offended by some of the things I say that are just natural adaptation of our species as much as any creature, because we have to learn to adapt. So let's talk about adaptation first. Okay. This is something that's remarkable to our planet, our trees, our apex predators, how they adapt and how they have changed over decades and millennium and stuff. I want you to understand we not only adapt to environment, as you can see, mine is a mess right now as I'm mid move, yet I didn't want to miss bringing you a recording of the episode, right? And we have history that shows adaptation again and again and again going on in the human race. One of the things that we have that are very specific in human adaptations are, well, how about like altitude adaptations, high elevation, high altitude, whatever. People who live in Colorado, you know it, compared to people who are visiting Colorado. They're huffing, they're puffing, there's less oxygen to breathe. Professional athletes will go train in certain environments so that they are better prepared. I'm a huge cycle fan, and it's amazing to watch those Tour de France riders go train at altitude so they are ready when they're climbing the mountains during the race to be accustomed and to adapt to the breathing conditions they're going to have. Okay. What about disease resistance that the human species have been able to adapt to? Right? There are diseases that have wiped out. Some of them have been cures that have come along, and some of them have just been genetic traits that allow people to not have certain diseases any longer. Now, sometimes the adaptation creates new problems, yet that's a conversation for another day. Now, there's two types of adaptations we experience. There's micro adaptations and there's adaptations. Now, macro is on a big level, right? Our species all together. So don't get offended, yet I want you to hear this. Our skin color adapted based on where we lived and UV radiation. Darker skin protects against intense UV rays. And that's why people who are from places closest to the equator are naturally darker skinned people. People who lived farther away from that had a lighter skin because that allows better vitamin D synthesis in our body in places that have less sunlight. That's it. Can you believe half the things we argue about are just because where our ancestors were born and our skin is a certain color and we have allowed that to shape our world today? There's an adaptation that needs to happen. Same thing with body size and body shapes. People that are from colder climates are actually shorter and stockier naturally to stay warmer, have less area to have to warm. Whereas people from warmer climates are generally taller and leaner. Think about that when you think about people from certain areas around our globe and say, oh, you as a race are generally shorter or stockier or taller and leaner. It's probably just where our ancestors came from, which is now passed down again and again through our DNA. There's also micro level. Those are macro level. How about micro level adaptations, which is just you? Like personal resilience. You might have adapted to have resilience in the face of challenges. That is an adaptation you've created. How you bounce back. Someone else doesn't bounce back like you bounce back. What about behavioral flexibility? The ability to change your routines, change your habits, your strategies in response to external stimuli that you need to do. These are all macro changes, just you, not the whole population. Okay, now adaptation and our personal growth. They go together. So I want you to understand that we have to take time to evaluate our current habits, our current routines, our current strategies, and ask this question: do they work? Because if they're not working, it's because we're putting ourselves in a position that we need to adapt, and we're not adapting yet. Are we being flexible by attempting new things, new approaches, new strategies? Are you learning from mistakes, failures, lessons, whichever words you want to use in there? Are you getting feedback? This will all lead you to adaptations. Okay? What I want you to understand is that the human being has a power of adaptation that no other creature, life form on this planet has. There are going to be certain ones that are brought upon you, like your skin color, like your natural body type, because your ancestors came from a certain location, or you've lived in a certain location and you've naturally seen changes happen slowly over your life. Some of them won't happen, like the size of your nose or your lips are not going to necessarily change over your life. Yet if you move to a certain place, your children's will start to see changes because the body will adapt. And we can adapt to anything that's in front of us. You can adapt to the challenges that you're facing. You can adapt to the experiences you're having. Some creatures on this planet can't. A tree can't move. It can't really adapt and say, well, it's too dry here. I don't want to be here anymore. You can. You can say, I don't want to be in these relationships anymore. You can say, I want to change this about me. You can say whatever it is because you have the ability to adapt because of the power of our brain. That's something other living things don't necessarily have the same way we do. So get out there, figure out which adaptations you need in your world, and keep diving into chapter 10 with me over the next few episodes.